Campaigners are warning that the NHS has no plan in place for those suffering with what's been called the most common condition you've never heard of.
And it's up to 100,000 Brits who are believed to suffer with the one you don't know about, because of its name probably, functional neurological disorder, or FND, which interferes with the brain's communication with the rest of the body.
Well, we can now speak to Tom Plender, who has FND. Good to see you this morning, Tom. Look, I mean, what is FND? What does it do to you, and how long has it taken you to get a diagnosis?
So FND is, I mean, the simple way of putting it is it's a problem with the signals between brain and body. So the brain is sending incorrect signals to the body. It's referred to as a brain network disorder. That's what a lot of the latest research is showing. What happened to me was I was a professional musician. I was studying at the Guildhall School of Music in my 20s, and I was doing an enormous amount of work. I was doing gigs every night of the week. I was very active on the UK jazz scene. And unfortunately, because of the amount of playing I was doing, I developed overuse injuries in my wrists and knees, which seemed to cure FND. And then I ended up embarking on what amounted to about 12 years of seeing doctors to try and find a diagnosis and treatment. And every doctor I saw said, oh, it's all psychological, it's all in your head, which was really unhelpful. During that time, I deteriorated. The symptoms are muscle spasm, muscle stiffness, a lot of very severe chronic pain, nerve pain. Eventually, I was referred to a neurologist called Professor Mark Edwards, who'd been researching the condition. And he said to me, it isn't psychological, that's much too simplistic. Actually, what you've got is a problem to do with the way your brain controls movement. And then I had a lot of physiotherapy rehabilitation, and I am in recovery now, and I'm starting to be able to play the piano again, which is one of the instruments I play, and I'm working back towards hopefully being able to play drums again, which is my main instrument. So it's been a hell of a journey. But
12 years, 12 years for no one to know what is happening to you must have been devastating to you. And what I find extraordinary is that, as you say, Dr. Mark Edwards, he's the professor of neurology who has identified exactly what it is you've got, but apparently 50% of health boards are not treating it, and 9% of health boards are not even accepting new referrals, all of which suggests that a very large proportion of the health service are not even recognising what you've got. That must be horrendous to people like you, and 100,000 is not a small number, is it?
No, I mean there are thousands in the UK, and in fact globally it's a massive problem, and it has been described recently in one of the leading neurological journals. It was described as a crisis for neurology, because there is an extent to which this condition has just been brushed under the carpet. The reasons for that are very complex. I mean, part of it is this idea, which has been around for a very long time, that FND is psychological, and I think there's huge stigma around the condition, particularly among medical professionals, and as a result, patients are often dismissed. Unfortunately, this is a very flawed idea that doesn't really have any evidence to back it up, and a lot of the recent evidence using fMRI brain imaging is showing that this is in fact a disruption of brain networks. So we have a crisis, and there is no national treatment service on the NHS for FND, and that's what, as campaigners, we're really trying to fight for. We're trying to tackle the stigma. So few people have heard of FND. It turns out, as common as Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis. So, and I think the second most common reason for consulting a neurologist. So this is a crisis, definitely, and it's something that's been brushed under the carpet for years. So we need an NHS care pathway for FND, and we have to get the information out there, the new research showing this is a real condition, and people are suffering terribly at the moment with it.
How important is it then? I mean, how difficult is it going to be to get that pathway, and how important is it? I mean, even just that we're talking about it this morning, actually, and there'll be plenty of people like me and Angela who'd never heard of it before, but are now at least getting some understanding of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a parliamentary meeting actually this week that the charity FND Hope have organised. So a lot of the leading researchers, neuroscientists, FND doctors like Professor Edwards, who's my neurologist, the guy who basically saved my life, to be honest, are going to be there. They're going to be meeting with politicians, and we're hoping we can get, policymakers to start taking this really seriously. And I know that is now, certainly they're talking about implementing it in medical training now as well. So if you are now just starting your medical training as a doctor, you will actually be taught some of the new research into FND, which is obviously incredibly important, because so many doctors don't really know what it is, and a lot of them have these very old school ideas about it just being psychological, and the patient's just a kind of hypochondriac, and get rid of them, because they're going to waste the doctor's time. That's just not true. So yeah, it's hopefully the parliamentary meeting will be a positive thing for us, and we'll keep campaigning. Yeah. But,
Tom, it's one of the
long way to go.
Sorry, Tom, but it is one of the problems for doctors that there are so many different symptoms that it's perhaps difficult for them, if they have not been trained in FND, to put all of that information together and recognise that's what it is, because you get seizures, spasms, chronic pain, and therefore they look at the individual things rather than saying collectively, this is what this is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really excellent point. And I think to be sympathetic to doctors, FND is an unbelievably complicated condition. As you say, you can result in all sorts of different symptoms. I mean, because of this disruption to brain networks, the range of symptoms that can be produced are vast. So that is a massive problem, and that's why we need more training. And certainly there are definitely different types of FND. So the type of FND I had was very much the movement disorder type. So I had problems with muscle spasm and balance and coordination. Some people just have seizures, which look a bit like epileptic seizures. So yeah, there are various different types that are sort of only just now being identified. Yeah.
The mend, and hope on, I think it's February the 4th, isn't it, that you're going to meet the MPs, that you actually get some positive response. Tom, thank you very much indeed for being with us this morning and enlightening all of us.
Well, and it's knowledge is power, isn't it, with these sort of things. And the more, if you can go to the doctor and say, could it be FND, even if they're not familiar with it, it gives them something to research, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Anyway, let us know if you're affected by that or have concerns.